President Putin tonight congratulating President-elect Trump, signalling he's open to a meeting, perhaps even before the inauguration.
If he makes a phone call, if he says, Vladimir, let's meet. So you're willing to talk to Trump? Yes, we are.
Holding court for hours this evening at an annual discussion group in Russia. But it is this first reaction to the election that is making headlines, effusively praising Trump.
His behavior when there was an attempt on his life, I was impressed. He's a courageous person. A person shows their true color in these emergencies. And this is precisely one of those cases, and I think he acquitted himself admirably.
If he says great things about me, I'm going to say great things about him. I've already said he is really very much of a leader, far more than our president has been a leader. Getting along with Russia is a good thing, not a bad thing.
The two men held multiple controversial summits during the last Trump administration.
I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be. Vladimir, thank you very much.
2 weeks ago, I asked President Putin about his long-running relationship with President Trump. We are weeks away from the US election. Russia again is accused of interfering, and that you have had private conversations with former President Trump. Have you been speaking with him, and what have you been saying?
As for my contacts with Mr. Trump, well, this is a thing that has been discussed through rumors. If the U.S. is open towards building a normal, healthy relations with Russia, then we will do the same. But it's going to be the choice of the future administration.
Tonight, Putin even echoing Trump election themes, like his suggested ban on transgender athletes in women's sports.
The opportunity for men to compete in women's sports, it simply destroys women's opportunities. Women should compete with women.
The Kremlin today saying it's not planning to contact President Biden. The two have not spoken for a long time. But the Kremlin did not rule out a Putin-Trump summit before January, or even a Russian delegation invited to the inauguration. Others in Moscow still cautious of a second Trump administration. Before the election, a pro-Putin lawmaker who was jailed in America accused of spying, telling NBC News,
I served time when Trump was in charge, and the hostile sanctions were placed on Russia during the Trump era, and the expulsion of the diplomats, Russian diplomats, was during the Trump's era, which means I would, differ what people say and what they do. However, being a Russian, I always have a hope.
Tonight, America's adversaries and allies waiting to see what move President-elect Trump makes over Ukraine. One report said the transition team already has proposals for Ukraine. Today, 2 European diplomats telling NBC News those plans have not yet been shared.
Keir Simmons joins us tonight. So, Keir, we heard from Kristen earlier in the broadcast that President-elect Trump had that phone call with Zelensky. What does his presidency really mean for the war in Ukraine?
But what a world we live in, Tom. That conversation that Kristen Welker was having with President-elect Trump, she was having that conversation just while President Putin was speaking. And you've got to think the Russian leader trying to send a message to President-elect Trump. And to answer your question, I think that the real question now is not just about what does President-elect Trump want. We know he wants an end to the war in Ukraine, but how do you achieve that? How do you persuade President Zelensky to agree to some compromises? How do you persuade President Putin, who may be feeling emboldened right now, to come to the negotiating table? And what does a deal look like in the end? What happens, crucially, to that territory that Russia invaded all those years ago?
You touched upon this in your report, but do you foresee another Trump-Putin meeting in this next administration?
Well, isn't it fascinating to hear President Putin suggest that he would be interested in something like that, maybe even before the inauguration? I would be look, you just don't know, right? I mean, that's one of the aspects of President-elect Trump. We know that about him, but I would be surprised if there wasn't a summit of some nature, maybe even before we get to January. But certainly that is something that President Trump feels he is able to do, to sit down with someone like Putin and negotiate. There is going to be controversy around it. Inevitably, there's going to be criticism, but I think we are very likely to see something like that once again.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.